Szanowni Państwo, jeszcze raz witamy w Bydgoszczy i zaczynamy tym samym tą główną część całego wydarzenia, czyli rozmowy zarówno o świecie finansów, jak i świecie informatyki, która coraz mocniejszymi nogami wchodzi w ten świat. Zapraszam Państwa na pierwszy panel, który poprowadzi serdeczny przyjaciel naszej fundacji Andrew Wrobel, który na co dzień prowadzi osadzony w Londynie think tank pod nazwą Emerging Europe, ale też jest jednym z liderów Emerging Europe Alliance, czyli organizacji, która powstała na początku tego roku i jej celem jest promowanie między innymi centralnej i wschodniej Europy jako lokalizacji dla rozwoju szeroko pojętych usług dla biznesu. Andrew, zaproś swoich panelistów.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's very nice to be again in Bydgoszcz. I haven't been here for, well, almost a year now, as far as I remember. Like Victor said, my name is Andrew Wrobel, and I am head of content strategy and research at Emerging Europe, a London-based think tank that helps Central and Eastern Europe countries, 23 of them, grow, develop in terms of economy, social issues, and also democratic issues. I am also responsible for strategy at the Emerging Europe Alliance for Business Services, Innovation and Technology. So like Victor rightly said, we are trying to build the profile of Central and Eastern Europe as the destination for innovation, business services, and technology. So without further ado, I would like to invite my panelists, and I will start with the only lady. So the only lady is Marta Rejman, member of the Global Council at the ACCA. Marta, can you join us, please? The next panelist is Karel Franchois, who is Vice President and Director of Business Development at HfS Research, straight from Cambridge. We also have Paweł Rychlik, who is Senior Manager, Risk Advisory Services at KPMG. And the last but not least, Mariusz Szałaj, co-founder for Synchronicity, customized outsourcing solutions. So we had an interesting introduction about about Bydgoszcz itself. We are going to talk about locations further or later on the panel. But what I would like to start with is actually the place finance and accounting is occupying right now in Europe, and we know that this is HfS Research that I'm going to quote now. We know that roughly a third of buyers are thinking of increasing outsourcing services in F&A going forward in the next 2 or 3 years, right? Karel, could you develop that and tell us where we are as far as this subsector is concerned?
Is it working now? Okay. Hello, everyone. So, yes, at HfS Research, of course, we're a research company. We collect a lot of data, we look at trends, and if we're looking at the F&A markets in Europe, we just actually published our global report on the first half of 2018 in terms of outsourcing and shared services center. Based on surveys we are doing, we're actually at the moment also conducting research with KPMG on the state of automation and IT globally as well, a big study. But what we're seeing in our analysis for the first half of this year is in Europe, the F&A BPO market currently is at $13 billion. And we're expecting this to potentially grow to $17 billion over the next 4 years. One of the other things that we're seeing as well is you've got BPO on one hand. If you're looking at shared service centers in Europe, over the last 3 years, 30 new SSC centers were opened, from which 90% in Eastern Europe. So that's a great development as well for this region. To your point as well on what are companies going to do, we do know that 1/3 of those BPO contracts in F&A in Europe is up for renewal in the next 2 years. So it's a very exciting time and also a big opportunities for countries like Poland, cities like Bydgoszcz to look at this. And the most interesting part to me or to HfS is because what we look at is, our history is in sourcing. We used to be called Horse for Sources, which is BPO, but it's moved beyond that, and we're really looking into intelligent automation. So the big question is, how are companies going to move forward? Are they going to bring things in-house again? Are they going to remain with their current BPO providers? Are they going to nearshore, onshore? What it's going to be? So very interesting times. That's really what our research shows at the moment.
So we're going to continue talking about automation further on, but I would still like to look at this part of Europe, and because you mentioned that Central and Eastern Europe or Eastern Europe has has a great potential as far as F&A is concerned. Paweł, we had a chat yesterday when I was on the train to Bydgoszcz actually, and you were telling me about the growth in this part of the continent. How do you see that? Can you try again? Because I think the interpreters will need the mic.
It's working, yeah?
Yeah.
You're right, because we observe, let's say, two trends, and we can say that we have two speeds of the market. From one hand, we see that some companies try to use and utilize the potential of the robotics, of the automatization, but many of the players still are asking for the labor arbitrage, as well as looking for, let's say, cost related analysis. So many of customers which ask us for the location study are really concentrated on the cost savings. So what we also observe that currently the majority of our clients asking for such analysis, there are small and middle companies which, let's say, the momentum when they competitors open the shared service centers. Now, based on our analysis, which were during the study in last year, during the survey in the last year, the initiatives which are under development in this sector are still related to the process optimization. 76% of our respondents says that this is the most important activities in the coming year, versus 45% which indicated RPA. From what is the crucial for the further development, there is also confirmed that 59% shows that the best talent attrition and retention is the most important factor. Comparing to the RPA, which was indicated only by 30% of C-level managers, as well as data and analytics, 24%, and cloud solution, only 7%.
So what kind of again, I'm going to circle back to the region. What kind of opportunities do you all see in F&A for Central and Eastern Europe? Marta, Mariusz as well?
So I think generally the opportunities are that with a growing use of technology, we are going to move up the value chain. And if we are moving up to the value chain, we are moving close to the business. So we need to show the understanding for the business. And that is bringing us, hopefully, in the direction of moving close to the organizations that we are working for. So if any of us is working for the organization with headquarters or one of the main offices in Europe, there will be a trend to have a shared service or a BPO which is close to, in location to this place, to be just very much related to the business
so
and be able
in the
to
region.
Exactly respond to the needs of the business. However, to be honest, I very much agree with what has been said, that most of the companies or many of the companies are still looking for the labor arbitrage. And that's exactly my practice, because in addition to my role in ACCA, I'm also a head of a shared service operation in Warsaw. And what my company is very much looking for is the labor arbitrage. And we are still looking into the direction of Costa Rica or India, so very much offshoring. And I would like to bring those messages from this conference, I hope, which will be going into the direction, invest in technology and bring it close home. So the challenge is the opportunity is that with this technology, I hope the business relation and the closeness to the business will be more important, and there will be an opportunity for us to play the role. In terms of people, I still believe we have the right people, we have the right talents, although we have made several mistakes in the past that we have to correct, and maybe there will be a chance to talk about them later on more in detail.
Mariusz, what's your take on that?
As Marta and Paweł said, absolutely what we do observe, the labor cost arbitrage is the most important thing for the investors. So it means that yes, RPA, yes, automation, this will take place. I'm not saying this is a buzzword with teenage sex that just a few did this, but everyone talks about this. However, this is about the scale, right? So the investors will look for an opportunity to simply, save the cost wherever it's possible. However, the scale matters. So it doesn't mean that RPA will be simply, deployed everywhere it's possible. It will be deployed wherever it's have something, will create a value added. However, in such places like Bydgoszcz or Central Eastern Europe, this will be still a hot place for shared services. And according with the global reports and looking purely through F&A type of services, absolutely this is the most, to be quite honest, this is the most popular type of services which is really centralized and then as a consequence standardized. IT, this is the third place. HR, this is the second place. So looking through the perspective matters, right? Here in Poland, we do have probably, correct me if I'm wrong, IT at the first place, and then F&A, this is the second place. However, once this is somehow structured, looking from the captive environment, the first place and the type of services which are really centralized and standardized, this is F&A. So consequences, this is a huge opportunity for Bydgoszcz, still a big opportunity for Poland to be purely aligned with the global standards and global trends. That's it.
So before we actually started the panel, like I said, I had a couple of chats with pretty much all of you. And also Paweł told me that this part of Europe is growing faster when it comes to F&A. How is that growth sustainable going forward? Can we do even more here?
Yes, of course we can. Yes, we can. yes, we can. And
can we grow faster?
We have, let's say, a good base. We have a highly qualified workforce. This is, I think, our main assets for the future growth. Even the market will change for the robotics. We have, let's say, also people educated and experienced also in this area. For many of shared service centers or outsourcing companies, that will be only the switch from the current way of doing business to employ not the human labor force, but automates robots. And I think we still have a chance. And for example, Bydgoszcz is a good example of the good mix. In the future, I think that F&A services will be developed in such cities, having a good IT background and having availability of workforce, having IT knowledge.
Yeah, I kind of almost agree with you, Pavel, with some nuance to it. Is a couple of things. Maybe the first thing is, when we're talking about 1/3 of the contracts be up for renewal, globally and also in Eastern Europe, the size of their contracts will go down in terms of what they cost, because everybody expects a higher degree of automation in there. So it's less labor arbitrage. Providers will have to look at different price models to engage in the market. But in the end, it will come down to talent. Is there enough talent in the market? And can you keep your talent? And that's not only, that's something that we're seeing globally. If you're looking at for instance, let's take India. You mentioned India already. One of the big challenges they have there is you train somebody and then they go off somewhere else. And if they got the right skills, the next destination is the US. So Eastern Europe as well, skills, training. I wouldn't necessarily agree to say that you need people with IT skills. I would say rather on the contrary. What we see in the workforce of the future is people with creative skills, entrepreneurial, taking initiative, being able to work with technologies like RPA, but also people in data science, data analytics, BI. What we talk about a lot at HfS is the One Office framework and the AAA trifecta of RPA, smart analytics, and artificial intelligence. Because RPA in itself is not a solution. That's what we would call a level 1 maturity of intelligent automation. It's far more than that. But you need the right skills. So what is important for cities to have is, first of all, have those kind of skills. So not just IT skills. I would rather say business-focused people who are IT savvy than rather IT people. And I've heard that most of the students here are in economics instead of IT. So I guess that's an advantage. But it's about how do you employ those people and how do you keep these people?
So what is actually happening here in, well, countries like Poland? Are we able, I mean, as far as I know, we already, companies, businesses already suffer from a shortage of workforce. Of course, we're talking more about, you know, sectors like construction, obviously, but are we, is the access to the right workforce here in Poland, in cities like Bydgoszcz, there? Can we count on the inflow of workforce going forward?
Maybe just not directly answering your question, but maybe just a few comments to what has been said already. I think the growth is in tier 2, tier 3 cities in terms of Poland, and yes, we can grow. Your question, if we can grow even faster, I'm a bit skeptical about it, to be honest, because of the shortage of staff. And if we are looking at F&A and the direction it grows very much into FP&A analysis, into consolidation, into regional finance services that are moved from the headquarters to our shared services operations. And what I have noticed in the last year or year and a half, it's an incredible increase in the cost of getting the proper GL person, because the high-level GL people have been moved to those other roles. So we have to train very quickly the juniors. The expectations are much higher, and it's much more difficult to actually get the staff, the right people, the right talents. So I think we need to, and the training of those people will take time. So I'm a bit skeptical if we can grow at the same speed or grow even faster.
Mariusz, any comments here?
Good question. I mean, the answer is pretty simple. Yes, we can. However, we need to overcome a couple of obstacles or showstoppers, which are either inside us, I mean, as investors, or inside the market. Inside us means that many times, I mean, in my professional life, met with investors that are simply asking for workforce which are simply overqualified to perform certain type of services or activities. This is one thing. The second thing, the language capabilities or knowledge, right? This is also not something which is absolutely must at the very beginning of the SSC journey or BPO journey. However, I mean, either this is driven by the fact that the investors are, pretty concerned about really, I mean, to recruit the people which are educated enough, right, in F&A, with university degrees, doing the key punching. I mean, this is probably not needed, right? The same story in terms of the languages. In terms of the labor market, purely, yes, we do have a couple of problems, absolutely, which may be somehow solved either through the RPA automation, other things. This will help, absolutely. However, thanks goodness, we do have still, a potential from Eastern Europe, right? And this is something which we do utilize right now, and we'll utilize much more effectively in the nearest future. So, yes, there is a possibility which we can somehow, utilize and open the blockers. However, first, somehow, concern ourselves not to recruit overqualified people because we will simply, fight with the frustration within the next couple of months or years. And the second, absolutely attract the foreigners more effectively. This is it.
Karel, you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, well, to your point, exactly. When you're saying let's try not to hire overqualified people, I think the opportunity is exactly there to hire those overqualified people. But to what you mentioned, like you don't want them to do the data input, that's exactly what intelligent automation will mean, is take away those tasks that frustrate those people and makes them look for another job. That's what robots are going to do in the future. And then you will really take advantage of those overqualified people. And we see this as really the growth opportunity.
As you said, I mean, recruit the potential, recruit the flexibility, recruit the intelligence, not the, certain specific, very narrow-minded type of the competences. This is it.
Exactly.
If I may add to that, create the opportunities for them, create the environment for them, because the mistakes we've made in the past was that we were getting those very, very good, very talented people and then put them into number input, basically. And we have the situation right now that some of them just lost the motivation, went back with their skills, and it's difficult to make them be creative and be innovative again. So I think, and on the other hand, the everyday challenges that we face in our companies, at least I do, is how to bring this technology to the company, how to convince the stakeholders that this technology investment is needed. So first create those opportunities and then get those good people on the board and give them the opportunity to grow and to use the skills.
Maybe we should, let's say, maybe we should reverse this question, because in my opinion, yes, we should employ the overqualified people, but in the meantime, we should create the proper environment for work, yeah? So invite the possibility of the higher automation. So let's say start more data analytics, make some data modeling, business modeling processes. So I think this is the way just to extend, just to improve the whole sector.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we very smoothly came to the conclusion about the management aspects and managerial skills or skill set simply, right? As you said, Jens and Marta, absolutely it's all about the management. And you said, Paweł, it's worth to think about 70-20-10 rule, means, on the job training, create opportunities, recruit overqualified or recruit the potential and simply make them plug and play instead of, doing pretty boring key punching.
That has been quite an interesting discussion. I didn't have to do anything here, but I will ask a question right now. We are here in Bydgoszcz today, and it's important to look at the business environment as well. And and we're talking about the skills needed. I mean, the outsourcing sector, or whatever we call it, has been quite successful in the region for quite a while now. Do you all see some sort of evolution in preparing the business climate, and by that I mean the educational system, for example, and preparing the talent for the sector? Has anything changed here, and how do you see that going forward?
It's adopting. I mean, slowly or not slowly, but it's adopting. Thanks goodness. It's completely different story than it was somehow 5, 6 years or 10 years ago. So yeah, we do have a lot of programs. I mean, programs in cooperation with universities, programs which is simply led by other institutions, etc., etc. So what is important to underline, there is a need, absolutely, and there is an also understanding on behind of the heel that something like programming or product management or RBI aspects, it's worth to learn, right? And due to the fact that this will be simply utilized very shortly in such environment like business services. So I think that we are in a good trend, or in a good, maybe not shape yet. However, I mean the direction is pretty good. Simply do more.
Marta?
A bit of publicity for ACCA maybe at this stage. The ACCA is cooperating with the universities, and we are working with the universities, bringing the ACCA qualification and the syllabus already to the program of the studies. So the students are through the studies are already realizing part of our qualification and are able to continue after they graduate. And obviously the message for the employers also, that they get people with the good finance knowledge already when they graduate, and it's for them to invest in those people and bring them the opportunity to qualify, to finish the qualification. So I think that's a good direction as well. And then we end up with the highly qualified finance staff in our shared services and BPOs. So definitely the right moves are there. However, I think we need to invest in skills like more soft skills in kind of creativity, innovation, the digital knowledge, and kind of flexibility for those young people to find themselves in whatever the life brings. So the finance function is changing, is developing, and we cannot tell them you will be an accountant in this profession, you will be an auditor. God knows what they will be doing in the future, but we need to prepare them for that. And I think that's also in our interest, in our profession interest.
Paweł?
Yeah, definitely agreed that we should concentrate not only on, let's say, hard competencies, yeah, but also we should, let's say, look at the behavioral competencies, especially relationship management, for example, and possibility to work with the non-human labor force. So I think this is, let's say, the huge gap currently, which should be also covered. From the other hand, I would like, let's say, to underline the role of the local authorities, because we observe from our experience that especially tier 2, tier 3 cities are more engaged in the cooperation with the potential investors, comparing to Kraków, Warsaw, and Wrocław. So it must be a change, because I think that this is the next momentum which the first tier cities can miss.
That's actually interesting because, well, like you said, the Krakows or the Warsaws of this world don't need to do much. They will, still attract.
Yeah, believe me, it's quite difficult just to arrange a meeting with the local authorities in Warsaw or Kraków, just to meet the new potential investor.
So let's take a step sort of backwards for a second, and let's look at the bigger picture again. We've mentioned, you know, automation and robotics quite a few times now. I just wanted to ask you about how you see the evolution of the activities that are performed by well, BPO centers or shared services centers as far as F&A is concerned. Karel.
What we definitely see is a move up the value chain, more demands on the kind of services being provided, so away from the typical transactional work. And again, that plays in with the discussion we just had about more creative entrepreneurial talent, higher skilled people, because on the one hand, in the global trend and how this impacts Europe as well, is companies are looking to nearshoring or onshoring, captive centers, SSC, because the nature of the work that is being done is different than what it used to be. So again, it's the combination of creative people with the right degree of intelligent automation, with higher skills, higher services being delivered. Things like analytics, risk mitigation, all those kind of things, which typically weren't outsourced or offshore or inshore or anything like that. That's really what we're seeing that is going to happen. And again, it's about getting the right talent to actually be able to do that.
Paweł, Marta, anything?
Yeah, maybe I think I mentioned that already, but maybe it's worth repeating at this stage as well. From the high value chain, exactly as Karl mentioned, but that in relation to the FP&A analysis, so further in the analysis, the activities that are moved from the regional finance teams, the budgeting, consolidation. So those are the things that we notice, that we observe. The support in M&As, and not only technical support, but really through the whole process, through the integration process after the M&A has happened as well. So that is something that I observe. So very close to the business, responding to the business needs very much directly.
I think that, I mean, what is worth to underline, that we do have, I mean, completely two different types of the services. I mean, maybe not services, but environments, which are BPO and captive environment. And, you know, naturally we will have completely, you know, I mean, in contra goals, right? Means that BPO environment, they will be, I mean, naturally much more focused and try to utilize the sexy technologies like RPA, automation, blah, 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 other things, right? Captive environments, once they are not so, I mean, big ones, and the size matters, they will be much more focused on the such aspects like creativity and you know, potential itself. So that they will be much more close to the human itself. I do hope, right? So this is the momentum. It's worth to somehow, you know, either utilize or be much more focused to simply, you know, create the employees pretty aligned with the company standards, with the company culture, etc., etc. What is worth to underline as well and mention, the captive environment means shared service center has a much more big influence on the type of employees and the culture of employees instead of BPO, right? I mean, we cannot somehow, you know, influence as a clients, external clients, which type of employees are really recruited by BPO. So it's absolutely in contra in these two types of services, and there are pros and cons. However, it's worth to take into account once the recruitment is really performed, once the entire, you know, I mean, learning programs are implemented in the companies. That's it.
From our perspective, the extreme automation dramatically changed the delivery model. So we, let's say, the current major transactional processes share, which is 55%, will be reduced to 10. So we expect that the growing scope of the business partnering, especially. So together with HfS, we noticed that, for example, sophisticated data modeling will be more important. Innovation and new capital approaches, management of digital workforce, which I mentioned a few times, and end-to-end process management. So from the research, we noticed that the data analytics and the budget and planning will cover the majority of the finance activities in the nearly future.
And to your point, Paul, when I'm looking at one specific page that one of the analysts prepared for me for today is the differences between the challenge for BPOs and for SSCs is specifically around SSCs. What we see is there's a lack of ecosystem of partners and alliances as SSCs work as an island of its own, and it's definitely where companies like KPMG have their place to play as well, and it's up to those SSCs to build out those partnerships to be more effective. In the same way that for the BPO providers themselves, is they might already have those skills, that network, let's say, but then in a way they have less control over being creative with your customer, because sometimes it's just what's down in the contract, and if there are demands from the customer to do innovation, to make improvements, that isn't always in the contract. And then the big question is, do you cannibalize on the revenues you have with this customer, or do you just keep it as is and be focused on labor arbitrage and the advantage of scale?
And the expectation of as a service economy. So just to limit the size of the contract only for those activities which are needed from my perspective as a client.
Exactly.
Just listening to you, I'm thinking if we are really contradictory, BPOs and SSCs, or maybe we are complementing each other. Because BPOs are very much about technology and looking for those solutions, those technical solutions, whereas the captive ones are very close to the business. So we have the skills that are very much complementary. So maybe what we will observe is the flow of workforce between those two, looking for those skills that we don't have within our organizations.
That's a
just
great
on a
summary.
positive note.
Yes, and that's of course when we're talking really about GBS, it's this combination of an ecosystem of having your own captive, having your shared service center, the shared service center taking more ownership about the management with the external service providers and moving forward. And that's definitely what I see a lot when I'm talking to my enterprise customers, typically from the Global 2000, is a head of shared services taking ownership about as the relationship with the service providers and really building out strong partnerships. Because in the end, yes, there is more flexibility when you're doing everything in a shared service center, but there's definitely a shortage of skills to actually do it. And that's where the service providers can come in, form true partnerships, whether that's an advisor, whether it's a service provider, and move the organization forward. But it takes maturity in an organization to actually achieve that. And not all organizations today have that maturity. But that's definitely where we're trying to help as HfS as well, is make you understand where you are and make you aware of the partners you can find to help you on this road.
Yeah, what is worth to mention in terms of the shared service center concept is worth to somehow, think about the end state, right? I mean, in the entire life cycle of the shared service center. And the drivers, what stays behind in terms of to set up the shared service center, right, in Bydgoszcz, for example, right? Either we are going to really, implement this due to the labor cost arbitrage, so we will end up with a grocery shop sometimes, or often, quite often, or we would like to simply, concentrate on the specific aspects like F&A, and then as an end state create something like center of excellence or something which will be much more value added than only, I mean, looking through the labor cost arbitrage, right? Which will create and somehow drive the entire transformation process in the organization within the specific areas which are somehow, you know, a focus or DNA of the shared service center. And this is probably the main question which we should answer ourselves at the very beginning of the concept, right?
So one more question about sort of a more regional perspective. How do you see automation and robotics being sort of implemented in Central and Eastern Europe? Is the region responsive to these trends? Are we lagging behind, or where are we? What would you see? How do you see it?
Who dares to answer that one?
So let me start. I mean, just keep in mind where we are as Poland and Central Europe in terms of the shared service center sector, right? We are absolutely top in this part of the world. This is one thing. The second thing, we are quite, I mean, meaningful in terms of the number of employees which are somehow, you know, employed in this sector. So as a consequence of this, right, the scale matters. So in terms of the new technologies, RPA, etc., I think that we are doing quite good, especially once we are talking about the, you know, quite big companies. I mean, BPO mainly, and we are doing. I mean, we are absolutely in a top tier, right? Because there is enough scale to test, deploy, and somehow have a meaningful outcome of this exercise. So nothing to be worried about, right? In terms of the shared services, as we said, is about the scale. Is it worth to implement this? It's about the business model, either, you know, process oriented, yes. Then let's think about this. Once this is business unit oriented, I wouldn't be so sure to deploy RPA there. However, in general, I think that we are in a good shape, and not the test rabbits, absolutely, but it's worth to test and worth to deploy such solutions like RPA.
Yeah, well, it's more than RPA, and on this topic, intelligent automation, I can probably go on for another hour, so probably won't do that. If you're looking at RPA or intelligent automation, so the AAA trifecta, more with artificial intelligence, ML, AI in there, you have to look at the bigger picture. But if you're looking globally, the real state of automation in this regard is, no matter what industry, no matter what size of company you are, there's only foreign few that really have executed on this exercise. And again, it depends on the maturity that you have. If you're only looking at RPA at level 1, simple automation, those highly repetitive tasks, and you're applying some RPA to it, everybody can do it, but it's very siloed. And you don't really see the big business value in it, and it's very hard to scale. Intelligent automation only makes sense when it's part of a bigger digital transformation program in the organization. So what we see as being successful approaches is at least combining 2 of the 3 elements of the AAA trifecta. So either automation and analytics, or either automation and artificial intelligence. Best case scenario is all 3 of them, but up till today, I've really only seen 1 company globally that actually has executed a complete program of digital transformation with the 3 of them. And I know from previous jobs how many years ago they started with this, and now they approach it a little bit to what you were saying earlier about business modeling and those kind of things, which used to be my old business. But if you were to look at RPA only from the perspective of what can we automate in F&A and only those pockets, it's going to be really difficult to demonstrate business value. So it has to be part of the bigger digital transformation effort in organization, which is a combination of, in the best case scenario, you have a GBS already. It's a combination of what you do in-house, what you do with your partners, how you work with service providers, with advisors, is having this bigger picture and execute on it. We actually do have some good examples, and we're going to publish a great study in the next few weeks. But it doesn't make sense if you're only looking at it at some simple automation in F&A.
It's about discipline of the process, I would say, right? I mean, I saw a lot of cases when, I mean, the RPA is not really utilized fully, and the automation is not utilized fully due to the fact that rubbish in, rubbish out. So absolutely, once the process is really, you know, clean itself, and this is about the continuous improvement, this is about the very beginning, right, at the fundamentals. Fix the fundamentals first, then, you know, you can somehow, you know, achieve the value-added outcome through robotics. So
Definitely, there is, let's say, the common discussion with our clients that they first should start to optimize, simplify, standardize the process, then move and try to automate. So go to the next step, but let's say the background. First, the background should be reached.
It's an interesting point, and I think it's somewhere in the middle. So on the one hand, for the last 10, 20 years, or even longer, we've all been thinking about Lean and Six Sigma and business re-engineering and process modeling. I used to sit on that side as well. And then when I joined HfS, everything was about, it's all about design thinking and the creative minds and throw away everything and just start from scratch. And I think the solution is somewhere in the middle. It's about how can you bring together those design thinking sessions, thinking about outcomes first and then solving the problems, or having your people who you've trained for years on Lean and Six Sigma going in, measuring everything and just saying like, no, can't measure it, so it has to say remain the same, all this kind of thing. You have to bring together those people, and you really have to think about outcomes. And when you know the outcomes, that's when you can do the whole exercise, and that's where you can get value out of RPA, AI, all the other things, analytics.
So we have the last 5 minutes right now, and I would like you to do some sort of exercise and play a fortune teller, and having a crystal ball in front of you, and tell me how you see F&A in Central and Eastern Europe in the next, well, I would like to say 5 years, but I think 5 years might be like distant future. So maybe 2 years, in 2 years' time.
2 years' time.
Yes.
So I think that
in Central and Eastern Europe.
In Central and Eastern Europe. So I expect and follow the ABSL predictions that the annual growth of 10% increase in employment in the sector is still reachable. And from my perspective, there is significant robotics implementation expected within this 2 years, especially in the big players. Then I think that the language neutralization is coming, which is also related to the robots implementation. So I think that the language skills will be not longer the main player for the locations.
Karel?
Well, I have to rely on the facts of our research, of course, and as I mentioned when we started, there's a potential huge growth over the next years in F&A BPO in Europe. And the only unknown, I would say, is related to talents. Is the talent available, yes or no?
So will it be available in 2 years' time?
Is it available today? Is it still available tomorrow? Is it still available in 2 years' time? I think the size of the market is known, but where will it be, how will it be executed, is down to talent, I think.
Marta?
Looking at the, again, ABSL analysis, I think 40%, like 15% of companies have already the RPA solutions and other technology solutions. The other 40% are looking at those. So looking at 2 years, short perspective of time, I think those companies will realize the project. So definitely the use of technology will increase within the SSCs and BPOs. As to the talent, I'm a bit worried. This is a short period of time, and we have a shortage of talent right now. So will we be able to address the issue so quickly to be able to produce the right talent within 2 years' time? I think we may face some difficulties here in the next short period of time.
Mariusz?
Yes, RPA, we'll play with RPA as we are playing right now. Absolutely. However, I mean, looking purely from F&A perspective, I think that we'll be much more aligned to the global standards. I mean, absolutely, F&A should be, I mean, the first type of services which will be simply, you know, provided on behalf of the either internal or external clients. This is one thing. The second thing, the second and the third tier cities. This is something which we will utilize either through the satellite models, so headquarters in Kraków and operational hubs in I don't know, Radom, Bydgoszcz, etc., or through the fact that mid-size and small-size companies, they are start to think about the SSCs, right? I mean, captive environment, which will be placed here due to the labor cost arbitrage. So absolutely, this is the area, maybe not for improvement, but for a growth. 2 years period, it's not a huge one. And I think that we will see a lot of investors which are not present yet in the cities which are not utilized yet enough.
That sounds promising, I think. Thank you very much for joining the panel this morning. I would like to ask everyone for a round of applause for our panelists. I hope you enjoyed the panel as much as I did, and have a great rest of the conference today. Thank you very much.